I'm going to give you one quick thought on the Bills and what they might do this week. Is Mecole Hardman going to dress to give them a speed element and maybe return kicks for them? I think that's very possible. But here's a thought on Gabe Davis, and you tell me if this is wrong. And I understand that we're making points about like what they could do in the passing game. But if Gabe Davis is elevated to the 53 and plays, and Josh Palmer returns, and they have outside receivers of Palmer and Davis, I think that could work for them, and I think that could be an upgrade. And without even really saying anything about Coleman, who I do think is catching too much flack. But think about this with Gabe. We talked about Gabe for years, right? Some of his greatest moments. He's a productive receiver that is a home run of a draft pick in the 4th round, and he had a good story, and then he left because the Bills decided not to pay him, and that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. However, and this is a compliment to Gabe, the idea of putting him in for Keon Coleman gives me one thing, and that's this. As much as we talked about Gabe, we never said he was playing out of position. Never.
Right.
Nobody ever said that I can remember. He really shouldn't be on the outside. He should be a big slot. Never heard that about Gabe once. It was
never once.
He doesn't really uncover against man and doesn't run a full route tree. Okay. But he wasn't out of his depth.
Right.
Out there. He was productive. So just if we're going on rolls and a receiver goes in to a spot, he goes into a spot he is, or at least during his career, he was modestly qualified for, where it looks like with Coleman, he's out of position. So could that be an upgrade? I think it could.
I would expect it to be. It's tough because we don't know how healthy Gabe is.
Right. If you want to give it a couple of weeks, maybe you could get the upgrade, but right off the bat,
right.
10 snaps, 30 snaps, I don't know what the number is.
I think the best case scenario though right now, what is more likely? That Coleman in the middle of the year, after it really has not gone well out there all season, and last year even wasn't like so good that you should trust that he's just suddenly going to figure it out in week 11, and you're going to get more out of Elijah Moore and Curtis Samuel, which we've been waiting for the entire year. The Samuel thing is now going on year 2, just like, I'll wait for Curtis Samuel. Like, no one's waiting for Curtis Samuel to do anything anymore. The best their receiving core could be would be if Gabe stays healthy, gets healthy, and if Palmer can be what he was even with the Chargers.
Which is a nice role player.
Right.
And then build that around Kincaid when he's healthy, and Cook.
And then where am I at?
And Shakir.
Maybe I have a passing game that is just respectable enough. I have a receiving core that's just respectable enough that it just makes it a little bit easier on the quarterback. It makes it a little bit easier on the ground game. It maybe makes it a little bit easier for their short passing game to get loose because teams are having to respect a little bit what you have on the outside with Palmer and with Davis. You probably will have to show teams, though. Right? You just throw those two on the field this week. I don't know that Tampa is just suddenly going to change the way they're playing. But if you could put a couple of games together where, Davis is making some of those long plays that he used to with Josh, and Palmer does have some vertical speed, then get defenses to start defending you differently. And I don't think that's going to happen no matter how, just as long as Coleman plays for them this entire season, I don't think that's going to happen. But maybe Davis can spark it.
803-0550. Mr. Payne in Buffalo. Hey, Mr. Payne.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Good morning.
Morning.
I just want to start off by saying I know it's been talked about so much, but just want to say thank you, fellas. Thank you, fellas, for standing on ground when Bean came on your show and said what he said. We don't need to go over what he said, but I just want to thank you guys for standing on ground on that. And when he did that, it basically painted a target on his back because now we see clearly the spot that we're weak at and we need the most. But thank you, fellas, for that. I really admire that because you stuck on ground no matter what people said. You stuck on ground and said that basically we're weak at and we need a wide receiver. Why are we playing around with this and how did we wait for it to get that bad? But anyways, I have another question, and the thing I want to know is, what can Bean do in the offseason to get this ship basically going straight, to get us back on the right path? What moves could he make to basically all the talk that we're talking about wide receiver or this offense this offseason? And it's sad to talk about this offseason, but the things that I see in the future of the Bills, I just really see that something needs to change. Because if they go this whole offseason and just focusing on the defense and ignore the offense, we're going to be in the same predicament, in the same boat that we were in every single year. And it's just like, I don't understand why people can't see that we've been down this road before. We've been in this conversation before. Something has to change. And it's just sad that the fans and we can see that, and the GM or whoever in there making choices can't see that. So that's the question I want to ask is, like, what offseason can Bean do to basically get us back on the right path?
All right. Thanks, Mr. Payne. There'll be, obviously, this offseason, like, whatever. A lot of the season still has to play out.
Right.
If Josh Palmer comes back and looks pretty good, that might, tame the wide receiver conversation a little bit. If the defensive line starts to come together, it's kind of tough to know your full offseason right now. If you want me to tell you the free agent receivers that'll be out there, Mike Evans, Christian Kirk.
Yeah, what position do you feel like it will be on the table this offseason? Linebacker, I think receiver.
Yeah, of course. Linebacker, receiver.
But those are really the only
potentially
two?
Center is probably there, unless Cedric Van Pran steps right in.
But again, that's not a lock.
No, that's right.
Linebacker and receiver are locks.
Let's throw safety right back in it. Bishop and who? I don't think it's going to be Poyer.
At least you have
it's
one.
going to be right. So there's a couple.
Speed would be the thing for me.
Speed, right?
Because even if Davis comes back and looks pretty good, and Palmer is decently fast, the thing that this offense has missed, I think, really for years
is speed.
Is just speed. And they continue to talk about how whenever they're asked about speed, we want to be a good football player first. I'd like their mentality to change a little bit instead of, let's get the best football players. Maybe once in a while, get the guy with the Harrison might be a little bit of this on defense, but on offense, grab a guy with the elite speed and make him into a great football player.
I was looking at Jamison Williams highlights this morning. I retweeted him.
He was awesome last week.
He was, and that's one of the reasons Dan Campbell's getting credit for the takeover is because they started using Jamison Williams in the ways that they used to. Their offensive coordinator, Johnny Morton, had kind of lost him in the shuffle.
Right.
And it made me remember that Jamison Williams was one of the original wide receiver trained targets because, hey, he's got a torn ACL. What if that guy could make it all the way into the 20s and 30s? And he did not. Of course, he went to Detroit, where he is a role player. But he's a guy that makes a difference because you pay attention to where he is all the time.
That's the thing. The Bills have so many pieces on offense that they fill roles. Shakir is your short yardage role. Coleman is your big body catch role. And Kincaid is your man-beating tight end role. But they don't have the speed guy. There's one role on the offense that is basically missing.
Right. And there's also one man-beater. That's
right. Only one.
One man-beater, and that's Palmer. And even that is a bit of maybe a stretch for him.